It's the new Wabu Order Podcast. We talk to build our culture up, we getting all that. We speak well to eat well, we giving them all facts. So like, share, subscribe if you know that you pro-black. Let's grow.
We are back. Welcome to the new Wabu Order Podcast. I'm your illustrious host, Wabu. Today, I know I always say a special guest, but this man, he's been on here. This is his third time. He's a Republican candidate for city council. He's a lawyer. I just found out he's into the mystic arts. Nick Hagen, how you doing?
Hey, man. Thank you for having me again. I like the new set, man. I haven't been on this show since this one.
I got the World, man.
Yeah.
My nickname used to be World, so
Well, there you go.
that's what put that up there, man. But how's everything been going?
It's been going well. You know, just been out and about campaigning, talking with people, trying to get elected. You know, since I came close, since the last time I was on your show, you know, like was before the election, so 2 years ago, but came close, and with any luck, you know, knock on wood, that we'll get over there this time around.
Hopefully it worked right. Like, you know, we done had plenty of talks, and I know you a good guy. Like, sometime with politicians, or just people in general, not just politicians, they don't walk that walk like they talk that talk. You get what I'm saying? Like, you really outside, you in the community, you stay doing community cleanup all the time, like all the time. I thought you started the organization or something. You're always out there. But and that's what it's about when it's coming. Like, I want to see the people who I've elected or voted for. I want to see them like out here.
Yeah.
I want to go in the grocery store and see them. I want to be able to touch them. And you one of them people.
Well, you know, like that. So I've worked in politics since, you know, I was basically like 18, right? And one of the things I've noticed from people that I've worked for is, like, you can tell a marketed difference of the ones that are like, and I use politician and statesman for this. It's like with politicians, you know, you only see them every few years, usually around election time, usually only asking for money or votes. And to me, that's not something I wanted to be. But, you know, versus like the people that I've worked for, which I consider statesmen, you know, those are the ones that are active. Those are the ones that, like, regardless of a win in politics, regardless of serving, they're out there, they're doing the work, and often without any social media presence, right? Without any, like, hey, this is just who I am, this is what I'm trying to achieve, you know, and you can't really be in it for the likes or the clicks or anything like that. So that's kind of what I try to be, is just basically like, look, this is who I am, this is what I'm trying to do. And I think, honestly, from a lot of the people that I've talked with that have, like, taken notice of that, they're very much like, oh yeah, you know, you're going to be the first Republican that I've ever voted for, or the first Republican in 5, 10, 20, 30 years, which is really humbling, especially when I hear it from people who that time frame is a lot older than I am. But, you know, I think that for me, that's something that we just gotta kind of get back to for politics. It's like, you know, this line of work, it breeds ego, right? And it really shouldn't, because it's supposed to be about we the people. And that's kind of what I try to do, and I show that by trying to show up wherever I can.
Like you said, being a Republican, right, in a Democrat-ran city, right? What's some of the obstacles that's in front of you? Keep it PG.
Yeah. No, I'll try. For me, I see a well-oiled machine, like a political machine and a political apparatus from our local Democrat Party, where, you know, they are pushing candidates in a particular way, and they honestly have more funding, more volunteers, are able to push their particular candidates. And that to me is something where, you don't get that personal relationship. And I bring that up because, I had a booth set up near the Henry Street Festival this past year. And, somebody, pointed this, a young voter wrote to me after they had voted. And they were talking about how, this was the first time I ever voted. I absolutely, they were very much like, the first time I ever heard you speak, I didn't like what you were saying. Like, I didn't like you as a person. Yeah. And the reason why...
Was that on this podcast?
No. It wasn't on the podcast. It was at a forum, right? And they were talking about how I was at this forum, I had this massive ego, or appeared to have this massive ego. And... for that, they weren't really thrilled about my candidacy. However, they kept seeing me out and about in the community, and they specifically pointed out Henry Street Festival, where we had a booth nearby, because Henry Street is a 501c3. They're not allowed to have political candidates there. Mm-hmm. So we set up nearby, and so did the local Democrat Party. Mm-hmm. But, we were the only candidate that was, that she had seen. I did see a couple of the other candidates that mulled around for a bit that day. But, we were out and about, talking with people, being like, hey, this is who I am. This is what I'm trying to achieve. And just being active in the community. And so, to me, one of the biggest challenges from, a party that has not won in now over 20 years.
For city council.
For council, right. Yeah. Roanoke, Republicans haven't won in Roanoke City, since Ralph Smith, which would have been, I believe, 2000. It's trying to shift a lot of people's thought processes. Yeah. Basically, it's about trying to talk with people, hear them out where they are. Because for me, one of the issues that I see is that anytime you have single party control for so long, a lot of the candidates and a lot of elected officials no longer work for the people. They're working for their party to ensure that they have power, to ensure that they fill in the cracks, to ensure that they don't, that they don't need to necessarily listen to people. Yeah. And to me, that's a fundamental problem.
Because they're going to get the vote regardless.
Yeah. And so,
that's where, not to cut you off, that's where benign neglect comes in, right? Because if you already know you're going to get the vote, why am I going to give the people any tangibles? Yeah. Which I'm all a part, which all I want is tangibles for definitely for my particular group, and more from the presidency. So if I would vote for any presidents that's going to have, I don't care about Republican or Democrat, I vote for what's in the best interest of my people. Yeah. And like I was telling somebody behind the scenes that how important local voting is. Yeah. Can you explain that to some of the people?
Yeah. So if you really think about the rules of government, right? Like the things that affect our day-to-day lives, are the streets paved well? Are the schools? Is the school system good in our town? How do we deal with crime locally? How much taxes are we paying for, our personal property? So like our cars or like a real estate stuff.
And we tired of ringing up our own stuff at Walmart.
Yeah. Like things like that, right? Like all that comes down to the local offices. Yes. When we talk about changes in policy for, the state does have a role to play, like on the state level, because we are still what's called a Dillon Rule state. And what that is it basically says that all power flows from Richmond And what I mean by that is local governments cannot or have to be explicitly or necessarily implied given the power to do something by Richmond.
Okay.
That's fancy lawyer talk sometimes, but
Yeah.
like the reality for that is it does have a role to play. But
Yes.
generally speaking, when we're talking about local elections, you're talking about like these very basic services. And so it helps to make sure that you are well acquainted with the person that you're voting for, and understand what they're trying to achieve. So like for me, one of the things I like to talk about and kind of put my money where my mouth is are these things, the phone holders, right?
Yeah.
So these are 3D printed here in Roanoke, and the reason why I had them, made them, is that we talk about trying to bring back manufacturing
To this area.
to our area, because we've seen from the pandemic to the wars in Ukraine and Israel to just the general supply chain not being as robust, and Roanoke needs to be self-sufficient in order to weather whatever storm comes next.
Because this is a blue collar town.
Yeah,
So why not?
we were built on the railroad. Like,
What was the thing that transferred that away from here? As far as the industrial.
partially, it's a shift in the global, like NAFTA, like the global kind of change, but more locally. One of the things that kind of pushed a lot of our industry out was this stormwater tax fee.
Stormwater tax.
Yeah. So basically, if you own land in the city, you have to pay a stormwater fee or stormwater tax, depending on who you ask. The courts say that was a tax. That's the reason why I come up with this. But we had Norfolk Southern headquartered here, right?
Yes, sir.
And for years, the city kind of was saying is how, hey, we're not going to tax Norfolk Southern because we want to make sure that they have continued business here in a particular way. And I'm paraphrasing here. So any historians in the comments, just give me some
I remember
apologies.
you spoke on that the last time I was here, sort of.
So what happened is that there was a court case. Basically, council wanted to tax Norfolk Southern for not just their land they own, but also the railroads. And if you think about how many railroads there are in Roanoke City, it's a lot. It's not.
It becomes pricey.
Yeah. So it ends up going up to the, I think, Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals, if I remember right. And the Fourth Circuit basically says, look, the city of Roanoke has the right to tax in this particular way. So what does Norfolk Southern do? They moved to Atlanta.
Yeah.
And
Took all the jobs with them.
took a lot of the jobs with them. And so, now we are shifting our focus towards biomedical and Carillion, right? Because they are now the largest employer in Roanoke City. The second largest, by the way, again, is Roanoke City Public Schools is the second largest. So like, I want to make sure that we have a much more robust economy, work with entrepreneurs here in the city to start their businesses, as well as hopefully bring in new businesses. Again, which is why I focus on 3D printing.
So are we going to get a Amazon?
So Amazon is coming in, yeah.
Okay, so it's official.
Yeah, so they have a warehouse that's being built. I think it should be finished up before the holidays. So yeah, they are very quick at it, and I'm sure that they'll probably, if they're not already hiring, I'm sure that they're soon to be.
And hold on, I gotta ask you about this because people would kick my ass if I don't. Evan Springs.
Evan Springs. Let's talk about Evan Springs. What you want to know?
So much to unpack.
Yeah.
With that. What's going on with that?
All right. So I am on record of wanting to preserve Evan Springs. I think every candidate, barring one, said that they want to preserve Evan Springs. However, council, in its wisdom, has stated that they are taking the advice of I think it was $200,000 consultant out of Richmond to make it easier to develop Evan Spring. And what I mean by make it easier is they have incorporated the recommendation of this consultant into the master plan, which calls for the push for development.
Even on that wetland, even on the wetland.
Not on the wetlands, because that's barred by federal stuff.
Okay.
But it's basically everywhere else in Evan Spring.
All right.
However, there's a couple of other things that need to be kind of discussed. The council has argued that this isn't actually changing the zoning. I will give credit where credit is due. It doesn't change the zoning for Evan Spring. That what they voted on doesn't, even though they voted to incorporate it into the master plan to make it easier for a future council to develop it.
Okay.
However, have you heard about this thing called the mass rezoning?
No, not really.
All right. I guess I should back up a little bit. So Evan Spring is predominantly zoned currently as single family housing.
Yes.
A good majority of it. However, council, again in their infinite wisdom, has chosen to change the way that we design single-family housing and is zoned in Roanoke.
For all of Roanoke, or just for
all of Roanoke?
Okay.
You probably might have seen big signs about like oppose the mass rezoning or end mass rezoning, that sort of thing. So what this does is it allows, by right, certain changes to be made to things that are currently zoned as single-family housing. And what does that mean? Well, under the way that the law was previous to this enactment of it, let's say that you own a single-family house in a neighborhood, right?
Yeah.
And all your neighbors are single-family housing, so yard, house, whatever. Well, a developer buys up the place on the corner, right, and wants to put in apartments or duplexes or something to that effect, right? Mm-hmm. So under the old law, what they would have to do, because it is different than the way that the neighborhood is currently books.
Yeah.
They would have to go to the zoning, the zoning commission, get a variance, which is basically saying, hey, we want to do something which is contrary to the current zoning laws. Mm-hmm. At that hearing, that's public. So your neighbors will be informed of it, have the opportunity to speak, and show their approval or disapproval.
Yeah.
Then it would go up to council, again, where there would be a public portion where they would be able to say yes or no, and then council would have the ultimate say on it. What this mass rezoning does is it makes things by right. And what that means is that there's now no longer a public hearing.
So it's all private.
It's all private. And so
we don't know what's going on in these rooms.
Yeah. So what happens now is you're changing a relatively cheap administrative process, potentially for a legal one, because all your neighbors still have rights to sue the developer. So it's not going to address anything like affordable housing like they sold it as.
It's going to be a big shit show.
Yeah. The reality is that this is a fundamental problem, and you're seeing it throughout the city. Like people, this has become a campaign issue where where this is one of the hilarious aspects of it. Republicans, Democrats, Independents running for council all say that this is a problem and we should repeal it, right? When you get Republicans, Democrats, and Independents agreeing on anything, but the issue is that you end up losing that right of the people to speak, right? Because now there's no chance of a public hearing.
Yeah. So how did we let this happen?
So this has been technically, according to the city, this has been in the works since 2019. I only heard about it this year, and you know how well I'm plugged into everything. When they started to put up these little signs that said, say yes to house, city started to put up these signs that say yes to housing. But again, I can't justify something which gets rid of the voice of the people.
Yeah.
People have fought and died for the ability to petition our government, so for me, it's like, what in the world are we doing? And it's become obviously a campaign issue. There's only one candidate, and they're running for mayor that is in support of this.
And nobody else is?
At least nobody who's currently running.
Okay.
But, 2 years ago, we heard that everybody was going to protect Evan Spring, except for, again, one candidate. Incidentally, a different candidate, but, neither here nor there for that. And then, what happens when they get into power? Oh, suddenly, it's a different story.
Yeah, that's just, unfortunately, can that be overturned, though?
Yes, but it would require a new council. So you need the joke about all this is you need 4 votes and go home, because 4 votes is a majority on council. Now, again, if all the politicians are keeping their word on this, which I certainly hope they are, then you get that chance but you would need a mayor candidate and then 3 of the council candidates.
Okay.
That, you can be damn sure that they're keeping their word. For me, the way that I sell it to people is like, how you know that I'm keeping my word? It's been over 20 years since the last Republican was elected. I like living here. My mere existence puts a target on my back, right? Like I've had one of my campaign office had a big storefront window shattered a few months back.
Just because you're a Republican?
We don't know the reason. We just know it was shattered.
Okay.
But it happens that it was at my campaign office, which I live above. So that's always a fun conversation to have with my wife about.
Because it makes it dangerous.
Yeah. One of the other candidates has tires slashed when he was out, door knocking. Political violence happens, right? But anyway, for me, I like living here, right? Mm-hmm. I'm not going to exacerbate things by lying to people, because that's the way you get people to be, frankly, ticked off at you. And there is no reason why I feel like I should add to it.
Man, that's crazy. And we got to talk about this.
Go on.
Because we spoke about this behind the scenes a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Your day job, you're a lawyer.
Yep.
Right? Mostly for marijuana.
So I do cannabis law. Basically what that means is that I help out farmers and manufacturers that are looking at entering the industry as we go towards adult use over 21 recreational sales. That is a mouthful. But, one of the things that I see with it, right, is that it's an opportunity to bring in a bunch of new jobs to Roanoke. The reality is that until we get federal legalization, Virginia has a good climate for grow, first off. Secondly, because we have 81 and the railroad, we can basically ship out to both north and to, north, south, and then to the east of us, because we still can't cross state lines with it because of the federal law. But we could be a hub for it for Virginia.
And you was telling me behind the scenes about how you can grow up to 4 plants. Right?
Yeah.
But you have to have...
So under the way the law currently is, you can grow up to 4 plants. It does have to be labeled I believe it's not for sale, and then has to have your name and your either ID number or license number on it, sort of tagged on a tag on the plant. And that's something that a lot of people don't think about when they are growing. So it's just something to kind of be aware of.
Oh, and before you go, I got to ask you something. There's been this big debate online, locally. And this is just like some conspiracy theorist type stuff. Do you believe the government is controlling the weather?
Man, no. I don't think that the government is controlling the weather. Yeah, no, I can't even like try to like do the politician thing and like justify that at all. I'm like, I'm just, you know how much energy is in the hurricane, man?
Yeah.
Like we're talking like thousands of like nuclear bombs, just equivalent in energy. I don't think that we can do that. You know,
manipulate though.
I don't know, man. I know that there was always that old conspiracy theory about that thing up in Alaska, HARP, I think, high altitude something radio. And the only reason why I even know about it is my older sister lives up in Alaska, and she's mentioned it once or twice. But I'm like, nah, I still don't buy it. Like, maybe if there was like, I don't know, some sort of there's things like cloud seeding, which we know is a thing, right? Where you can use like silver nitrate and other particulates in the atmosphere and basically cause like clouds to erupt. Yes. But like things like making a hurricane or making a tornado or making these earthquakes or whatever. Nah, I don't buy it. At least not not yet. Like I haven't seen anything. I
had to ask you that. People was going to ask me.
I would have. I don't know what. I love conspiracy theories, man. I love like just studying them, not necessarily like believing them or anything like that. But I'm like, it's always fascinating to me, like what sometimes people will come up with. But are they controlling the weather? Nah, probably not. Like I can't see that as being a thing, personally.
Well, we can't control the weather, y'all.
Yeah.
But let the people know before you go also, why Nick? Why vote for Nick Hagen?
Yeah. Look, like I grew up here and family's been here forever.
Went to school here?
Went to school here. Pretty much everything except for undergrad and law school. So I've been in Roanoke. I came back here after law school and I want to see Roanoke grow. What that means is things like new jobs, like with advanced manufacturing, to making sure that, our school system is better, making sure that our kids have a future here. If you like what I'm talking about, I highly encourage people to check out my website, which is nick4roanoke.com. Also, if you like what I'm talking about and want to vote for me, come down to early voting. If you're in the Roanoke City, it's 317 Kimball Avenue. They are open Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. 90% of the time, you will probably see me there if you come down.
Yes, no, he's definitely always there.
Yeah, in fact, I think there's a photo of me during that the hurricane going around of me fighting with an umbrella. I'm trying to work for your vote. I'm hoping to continue that work. If
early voting again is
317 Kimball Avenue, and that goes up until, like I said, Monday through Friday, except for the last 2 weekends in the election, which is October 26th and November 2nd. And those two are the 2 Saturdays where it's also open, 8 to 5. I've been very humbled by a lot of people who have told me that they're supporting me. I think that a lot of politicians take that for granted. I'm not going to. I recognize that ultimately a lot of people are putting their trust in me, and I'm hoping to live up to what they expect.
Man, listen. I'm here with you, man. This is Nick Hagen. Definitely vote. What's the website again?
Nick4Roanoke, FOR. So, .com. You'll see a little bit about transparency, about crime, about jobs, and education.
So y'all tap in with Nick Hagen. And remember where y'all heard it first. New Wabu Order Podcast. Remember, the fight is fixed. If we speak well, you eat well. Let's grow.
It's the new Wabu Order Podcast. We talk to build our culture up. We get into all that. speak well to eat well, we giving them all facts. So like, share, subscribe if you know that you pro-black. Let's grow.